If you look at the challenges facing the ECB, they're times 10 what the Fed faces. Europe, for me, is the most vulnerable segment of the global economy this year and next. They are approaching what I call stall speed.
Okay, so look at Europe. Mr. Draghi's leaving in October. This is Mario Draghi, Mr. Everything It Takes Draghi. And we have Ms. Merkel is potentially on the way out. So the glue of Europe, that Angela Merkel, that foundation that's held everything together, is potentially leaving, whereas the Salvinis of the world in Italy are strengthening. We have forces that, political forces in Europe that are much more evenly distributed than centralized strength of political force. If you think about the next head of the ECB, might we have an ECB head that maybe is more supportive of populism in the South and supportive of deficits? Or might we have a more Austrian-looking Schäuble type? Schäuble would never be in that role, but he's the former finance minister. But that thinking of austerity, isn't that the key to this? Like, where, if you look at the next head of the ECB and that ECB balance sheet, what are your thoughts on which way it might go?
So we don't know which way it's going to go,
yeah,
because this is a political process, and ultimately it's going to be a political decision. We don't know. But go back to the Patriots, okay?
Okay.
What makes the Patriots such a powerful team? And then compare it to Europe. They have a number of very strong players that you can rely on. Their teamwork is great, and they're very well coached. So let's look at Europe. The 5 major players in Europe are all having problems. UK with Brexit, France with the yellow vest protest against Macron. Germany going through a major, as you mentioned, leadership transition. Spain going to an election where it's not clear whether you're going to get clarity. And Italy, a new government that's trying to find its way around. So the first thing I would say about this Patriots in Europe team is that the major players are problematic. But you say, don't worry, I have teamwork. What teamwork? Europe is not functioning. Brexit has sucked all the oxygen. There's no progress on banking union. There's no progress on fiscal integration. You say, that's okay. The coaches are there. I have Belichick's there. Well, you pointed out, Draghi's leaving. Merkel's leaving. Which coach is there? We don't even know what the coaching staff is going to look like at the end of this year.
We know markets hate uncertainty.
So if you look at now, the ECB has been very lucky because with the Fed U-turn, they've stayed off the radar screen.
Yeah.
But if you look at the challenges facing the ECB, they're times 10 what the Fed faces. And that's before we look at the transition. Their economy is slowing rapidly. You got dreadful PMI numbers out of Germany. Dreadful.
And Germany's beta is so high to emerging markets and to China. In other words, because they're such a large exporter. So it's fascinating that you can have a man like Mr. Draghi in the ECB do so much balance sheet, but at the end of the day, this trade war with China, strong dollar, weakened EM, weakened China, and that just...
So for me, it's not a surprise because what do balance sheet operations are like painkillers.
Yeah.
So Europe is structurally impaired.
Yeah.
You have real issues in terms of competition, productivity, etc. They need surgery. They need the sort of surgery that Germany went through, call it 15 years ago. Reform of the labor markets, etc. You go to the surgeons, and the surgeons can't agree. So you go to your doctor. His doctor says, fine, I'll give you some painkillers because I'm just going to help you through a short-term period until the surgeons are ready to deal with your structural impairment. And you know what? They can do it. They need the political will to do it. You come back and you say it hasn't happened. I say, okay, so I gave you negative interest rates. Let me now give you more balance sheet. So I'm going to double your dose. And we go through this repeated game a few times. Now, a couple of things happen. One is the medicine becomes less effective. 2 is you start worrying about the side effects. What's negative interest rate doing to my banking system? What's it doing to my ability to provide long-term financial protection products retirement, insurance.
So on that, the recent comments, public comments by central bankers in Europe are starting to question negative interest rates.
Correct.
Is this a real shift?
So I think it is. I think that they've gotten to realize what I call the Bernanke equation. Benefits, costs, risks. And you risk undermining, and that's why people say, ironically, instead of encouraging people to spend more, you encourage them to save more, because they can no longer rely on pooled vehicles for long-term savings. And I think that's the realization is the medicine is less effective. It has side effects. Now, the good news is that the surgeons just need to get their act together, because we know what the surgery looks like. We just need them to be able to be willing and able to intervene. And they're able, but not willing as yet.